Good indicator you're onto something. You made somebody mad.
Not everything has to be a company. Not everything has to be your best idea.
First week, it was not a lot of traffic. And then the next week, it doubled. The next week, it doubled.
Then people start to sue you. And that's when you know you've really made it.
Oh, well, like, well, what are you trying to hack? Are you going to get in trouble? All right, we're back for episode 5. It's been a little while for us, but I mean, I guess uploading it will also be a little bit late, but that's okay. A little bit of a gap, but we're back at it. Let's see. Last time we talked about frameworks and libraries and the unclear distinction between them. But this time I think we're gonna change it up a little bit. And we had originally planned a hackathon episode. Unfortunately, you kind of dropped the ball on that one, but may still talk about that anyway. So maybe talk about some hackathons and side projects and any other kind of fun projects like that. So let's jump into that, I guess, if you're up for that.
Yeah.
All right. We're short on Eric, unfortunately. I think he's busy with work this week, so he couldn't make this call. But that's okay. We've done an Eric and I only. So this is a Will and I only, and then we'll have to do an Eric and Will only episode at some point, so we can get all the combinations.
The Eric and Will episode, if no one's there to stop us from going down the most ridiculous rabbit hole of back and forth arguments, it may be either the most interesting or the one, like just one topic episode.
I'm gonna say, it would be entertaining for sure. It would be a good one. I'd look forward to that one. So we'll have to make it happen at some point. But yeah, awesome. Well, without Eric's input on hackathons, we'll have to get him later. I know I think he's pretty pro hackathon. I think I've seen him wear a couple shirts even that said hackathon on there. So quite fond. But I don't know. Let's start off. You actually have quite a bit of hackathon experience. It sounds like you've had some pretty successful hackathons, I think.
Yeah, I really enjoy them, honestly. So I guess a shout out from my source, and no relation to myself at all, but I use DevPost, I believe is what it's called, right? DevPost, I think, is the site. Let me double check real quick so I'm not stupid. Yeah. Home of hackathons. It's literally their tagline. So I use them a lot to find and search for hackathons. And it's just, like a great place to go and browse to see like what companies or even industries are trying to promote some type of cash prize or reward of some sort. Like maybe it's not always money, it could always just be like, for example, AWS, maybe they host a hackathon and you don't get money, but you get like credits. So like AWS credits. So you can use their services for free up until, you run out of credits, right? So it's not like money, but it's still a cool reward. So that type of stuff really intrigues me because I think the biggest takeaway from hackathons isn't the prize, although that's a huge incentive for a lot of people.
Not so bad, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is just trying out the products and building something cool in a short span time and like learning something, as well as like getting exposure to all the new things. Because usually these hackathons is either a big company like Google or Microsoft, the two, Meta, 3Gs. They're usually trying something new and they want you to be like the beta program for it. So they will give you like exclusive access to their AI, or they'll give you exclusive access to their new product, and they'll generate a key for you. And then you will build a hackathon project around it and you get to play with it. You get to learn it. You get to be ahead of the game and you actually get to, try it out, send them feedback, maybe help it grow, maybe contribute in some way. So then something, that you do in your project, they may like, and they may, use to better their, whatever they're trying to promote. In this case, obviously it's a lot of AI stuff, but I've done them long enough before AI was such a big topic. I've done hackathons on IoT devices. I've done it on cryptocurrency. I've done it on just regular, REST APIs to try and build something cool with like Supabase, which is just, a database program. So like just build anything, but use our database, like that generic, right?
Oh, so, really? Like Supabase was actually just like, hey, mess around with our endpoints?
Yeah, just use Supabase and build whatever the heck you want. And so they had categories of like creativity, they had categories of finance, they had categories, so you can kind of bucket it a little bit. Like I'm going to build a stock trading app, right? So you put yourself under finance, but they always have usually like a category for creativity, which is just like something completely wild that you can't really put a name on. And it's just super flashy and cool. And it does like something random. And so, you put it in there. So yeah, but I love them. I mean, it's really just getting the exclusive access to a lot of really cool tools, learning something, and then Just grouping up with a bunch of friends, throwing yourself into a room, hacking away. It's awesome.
Right on. Yeah, for sure. Well, and yeah, it's funny. Well, so I've never actually heard of Dev Post. I mean, you probably mentioned it, and I just never never realized it. But that's really cool. I had no idea that there was a source to actually go to, and it does look like from what we were looking at, a little bit dominated by Google, Microsoft. Your big dogs. But there are definitely some other options as well. But that's really cool. And I know, yeah, because I know you had talked about one of your projects before where you had done, I think, some crypto based ones, and
Mhm.
like even you win some crypto as part of being the lead on the hackathon. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Um, but the early access though, I actually didn't really realize that they would. I mean, it makes sense that that's what they'd be going for, is the true
Yeah.
hackathon. As far as here's some new stuff, like go hack it and see what you can do. So that's also really cool. So I'm less experienced on the hackathon side of things. I guess maybe more kind of related is more of like Google Code Jam, which RIP is no longer around, but more so like a coding competition. Which, I mean, I guess we can also get into that as well, because I know that you have your current favorite right now. Um, but yeah, I know Google Code Jam was kind of the same idea, I guess, where it just you would sign up for basically, like, I forget, it was a couple weeks, I think, where every few days they would release a new problem and basically start a timer to see how fast you could get it done. So not exactly hackathon, but I still feel like it kind of falls in the same realm as far as like limited time to try to solve a problem or do some coding. So I guess kind of taking it in a different direction. But yeah, most of my hackathon experience is really just from like a weekend of deciding like I'm gonna like build something, something kind of like you said, with like, I don't know, something creative or whatever, something different. Try to hack together a website, or I don't know. I've actually had multiple weekends of just trying to hack together like a game, like within a weekend. It always ends up just being like some sort of clicker game or something like that that doesn't get very far. But yeah, same idea. So um,
Yeah, I was gonna say lately, I used DevPost in the past for a lot of my stuff, and it's been very successful at searching and finding those hackathons. And like I said, my objective is always going in to just play with the tool, like find one that intrigues me. Right? Like everyone has their own method, but like you don't pick the one with the biggest pot, right? I mean, sure, that's enticing, but like I usually find the one with something that sounds fun to use, and it could just the reward could just be stickers, and I'm like, I don't care. I just want
right on.
I want access to this tool. I want to like figure it out. I want to try it out, right?
Sure.
But lately, I haven't even been like doing that. I've actually doing more of what you've been saying, which is I've just kind of been gathering up my friends, and we've kind of come up with our own ideas. And because we've done these actual structured, legit hackathons for so long, we kind of already understand the whole process. We've just started to like just do it ourselves, like host our own, invite our own people, come up with our own product, our own incentive, our own thing that we want to have access to or try, and then just wrap around an idea around that, and then just hack, right? And so now we're not even assigning what we want to a dev post or a dev post hackathon per se. It's literally just up to whoever wants to come up with something. So like anybody in the group can be like, hey, I have this crazy idea, let's all like work on it together. And we're like, okay, well, we don't really want to work remote, and we all have our own lives and our own jobs, so let's just pick a weekend that we all can make, throw ourselves into a room all right next to each other, and build out this idea in one weekend, just like a hackathon. And that's proven out to be very successful. We've made a lot of really cool things, learned a lot together, and just kept that hackathon feel, that hackathon style that we've used from DevPost hackathons in the past, but now applied it to our own things and what we want to build, just like what you were saying, with websites and stuff.
That's really cool. Especially, yeah, that's a great point where you kind of develop that process, I guess, by doing the ones from DevPost and like getting a kind of a little bit of a routine down, so you can just go ahead and apply those steps to your own thing and go a little more free form. But you've got the foundation, you know how to structure it now. So that is
Yeah.
really cool. I was going to say a couple things there, I guess, as far as like essentially like a startup. I mean, kind of
Yeah.
like a mini startup, basically, or just like a weekend of like, oh, get everybody together and put something you
Oh
know
yeah.
build
We
something
joke about
quickly.
what the startup name will be, and we joke about how much seed funding we'll get at the end of the weekend. Like it's
Nice.
that type of vibe. It really does kind of give a lot of fun inspiration and motivation to like do something like that potentially. Like you always come up with these grand futures, but I guess I'm a little bit more realistic in it, where I'm just there to learn something, have fun, and move on. But so I would say there's a couple guys that are in our group that kind of get stuck on that idea that this is going to be something, and it's hard for them to let go. And I'm like, no, this is literally just a hackathon. Like after this, we're probably going to do something else. So like, but
For sure. Yeah. But
yeah.
can always be prepared for that exit,
Oh
just
yeah.
that hit one out of
Yeah.
the park and you're all good.
And that's the thing is like a lot of hackathon code doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the most scalable. You don't have to build the code to scale to 1 million users right from the get-go. You just build something that works, build something you can hold, something that like, and when I say hold, it could just be an app. Like I mean like kind of more figuratively, not doesn't have to be a device that you're building, but like something you can use, I guess is a better way, or something you can interact with, something you can show to somebody, right? Like a demo. Like just get to that point, and that is a huge success, I think, of any hackathon, just a demoable product. And it doesn't have to be that code that you just wrote doesn't have to be the code that scales you to 1 million users. Like that's ridiculous. So I think that's where, I guess, kind of pivoting a little bit. That's, I think, as my advice, I think that's what a lot of people get stuck on when they try to do hackathons, and that's why it's not fun. Is because they're too focused on the boilerplate, and they're focused on the architecture, and they're focused on the foundation, and they like at the end of the hackathon, they're like, I got nothing done, and it was just a bunch of copy pasta code that was setting up a REST API, and it was boring. Like, God, I don't want to do that what, I have to make a REST API every time? That sounds so repetitive and horrible. And it's like, okay, but when you build a REST API, don't create an MVC folder structure. Don't make sure it has interfaces. Don't make sure that like who cares? Write it all in one file, make it work, make it connect, have it have a bunch of spaghetti code, because at the end of the day, you're just trying to get a demo out. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then if you really love it and it really does start to pick up, then go back and refactor it. Worry about that
Yeah.
later.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Hacking is at the heart of it. You got to hack it together. So,
Yeah, for
no, yeah,
sure.
absolutely. No, I think that's a really easy trap to fall in. I mean, I probably still fall into that trap as far as just over engineering and over preparing, or just like, oh no, we got to make sure, we want to build out the architecture correctly and have all of these situations handled and make sure that it can scale. And just, yeah, then you get into all that, uh, too much infrastructure, too much boring stuff, too fast, and then it's just like, oh yeah, you lose all motivation because now it's just like technical work. I mean, unless you really love
Yeah.
that stuff, which is also possible. But yeah, no, but it's a slippery slope sometimes. When a lot of times you can just go the other route where it is really satisfying to like see something come to life, and then
Hmm.
regardless of how messy it might look on the back end. Um, yeah, but even, yeah, just the power of being able to create something over a weekend and just like from idea to like, oh yeah, this is a thing you can click on and it actually does stuff, is really cool. It is very satisfying. So absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer of, if you're doing something for the first time, like let's say you decide to grab a group of friends and you're going to build a React Native app, and it's because you see React Native as your new tool that you want to try and you want to learn. So you're going to come up with an idea. Let's say your idea is a um, table reservation app. So you're like, okay, we're going to make a table reservation app. It's going to be kind of like Resi or Round Table. Is that the other one that's popular? Open Table.
Open table. Yep.
Like a clone, right?
Sure.
And build it with React Native and see what happens, right? Like, and so a lot of people would see that and go, okay, well, I need to learn React Native. So let's like get really methodical. Let's make sure it's right in the right structure. Like make sure I'm pulling in the right component library. Let's make sure I have all these dependencies. I have Redux in there. I got all these things. It's like my approach to all that is like, if you build something with a new tool, no matter how much you prepare, you're always going to hate it when it's done, and you're going to want to restart anyways. So
For sure.
don't, like 9 times out of 10, like don't put too much effort in the first version or the alpha version of the product, because especially if it's a new tool like React Native that you have no experience on, no matter how much you research, no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how tutorials you do, like you can do so much setup time. It's that hands-on experience, you doing it yourself for your particular use case. By the time you're done building it, 9 times out of 10, you're going to look at it and go, I could do that again so much better now knowing what I know. So just do it first, messy, learn all
Right.
that things, get that hands-on experience, because you know that you're gonna have to redo it anyways. Then do it right the second time. So
Absolutely. Or the fourth or fifth time.
yeah,
Yeah. No, exactly.
right.
Like it's basically impossible to prepare for everything. Like
Yeah.
you're never gonna know everything that's happening. So it's much better to like get started and actually do it, because working in concept, there's just no way. Like there's just no
Right.
way to really be able to understand it. So yeah, no, I would I would wholeheartedly agree. And I guess I was going to say the iteration is super important. Um, one of my favorites, one of my favorite concepts is be able to iterate because you just never know. Um, but yeah, sometimes it doesn't always work in the bigger projects once you get to a certain size. But yeah, no, definitely starting out though, yeah, that's perfect. And I was going to say that that's also kind of where a lot of like no code platforms right now, like now is it's just getting easier and easier to do stuff like that. I mean, where with things like Bubble and that kind of thing, where you can actually just use a you know user interface to drag things onto a screen, and there's so much stuff that can be done for you automatically, and kind of like
Yeah.
you said, where yeah, it's probably not going to scale, but I mean, if you can get something built and like get a concept up and running, and especially if you're looking again at like the hackathon weekend, that if you really have a good idea, you can get something working and get it in front of people, within a couple days. It's just really kind of mind blowing. And then once you have gotten it in front of people and you figured out like, oh yeah, this is actually what's going to be the problem. Like I thought it would be this thing, but now the people are using it. I figured out that like they don't care about that. They're doing something else. Now you know how to rebuild it, and like what to focus on, and then that starts to determine what the perfect stack is going to be, not trying to guess the perfect stack from the beginning.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, those no code solutions are crazy. And that's kind of why they exist. Like, I think
Yeah,
most of them try to sell themselves as enterprise level solutions to things. And some of them can be to a certain extent, but there's always a scaling problem with those no code solutions, right? It
for
can be
sure.
for enterprise, but like enterprise for maybe a couple hundred, a couple thousand people, as soon as you start scaling to like global enterprise, millions and millions, right? I think you can really run into some issues. And maybe some of them handle it better than others, right? Especially if it's like a static web page that just showcases a blog, right? Like I'm sure it can handle that just fine. But if you're looking more of like a SaaS product, like a full software as a service thing, like you're going to have to kind of step away and maybe, build your own architecture. So all of that whole rant to say that I totally agree with the fact that for hackathons, I mean, that's what those tools are for. Get something
Yeah,
out there, get something in the hands of people to get that feedback. And then if you treat the hackathon as a closed loop where it's like, okay, this is the hackathon, this is it, this is done, and it's a learning experience, then you don't waste time, you know, getting nothing done, and you get more reward out of learning about the product, learning about the new API or the AI or whatever you want to use. But then, if it does turn into a real product, okay, it can still scale for you for a long time. Like those solutions will work for a while. So you have that whole time to build it again later. So, you definitely got some flexibility with those solutions for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of bring up, I guess, more of a visual to kind of talk talk about. This is one I just saw the other day. Protopie. It's obviously more mobile app focused, but um, but it's pretty cool. I mean, just being able to like conceptualize an app and be able to put something together. It's kind of very like Figma inspired, I suppose. Which we can also cover Figma a little bit too. Um, but yeah, kind of crazy that you can make something that looks pretty legit and do it pretty quickly. And I mean, really, if you don't know how to code, it's still entirely possible to probably fumble your way through.
Yeah.
It's hard to look at this kind of thing, which is, yeah, again, like, I don't know, maybe no code would be good for another topic, but it's hard. It's hard. I mean, from like a developer standpoint, where it's like I can look at an interface like that and really already have a lot of the concepts because like I've done the code. But I'm sure for someone who has not done the code, it would be very overwhelming or is very like early to code. Um,
Yeah.
but but anyway, just the fact that it's like even if you want to spend uh, kind of like you said, I guess like if you did multiple hackathons in a row, by the time you did your third or fourth, even if you started off completely fresh and you've built a few things in even something like this, where it was initially maybe a little bit overwhelming, now you become an expert and now you know exactly how to build your quick prototype in this kind of thing. So yeah, it's just kind of crazy though, just to think like I don't know. I went from a time where it's like I have no idea how people make these fancy websites and how they like build these things so quickly, and now you have tools that can totally do it. It handles like 70% of the work for you. Just have to click a few things, know what you're doing, and you can do it in a weekend.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of them, right? Like you said, you just found this one, and you
Yeah,
already know. We both know of a long list of all of them. And not all of them, but all the ones that we know. There's obviously more than the ones that we know. It's crazy. And honestly, it's not even, I think, a matter of which one's better, which one should I use, like, because then you start slipping into decision paralysis again, which is the whole point. I
Yeah,
think I'm trying to get at it with all of these hackathons is don't fall victim to decision paralysis. Okay, we have this idea. What are we going to use? What's the back end? Okay, what's the front end? What's the component library? What's the styling library? What's the language that we're going to use? What's the database are we going to use? MySQL, Supabase, AWS, right? Like, just build it, and just build it like fast, because you only have so much time, and that's the whole point, right? It's to learn, it's to do something new, it's to get something out there, right? Which we keep just like a broken record that we keep saying. So when it comes to all these tools, yes, there's a lot of them out there, and just pick one, because in the end of the day, let's say you pick it and it sucks and you couldn't get what you want out of it, then right there is a learning experience. You just learned something because you tried a new product, you didn't like it, or it didn't flow with the idea that you wanted. So now from good experience to either not use it for that use case and maybe use it for a different use case in the future, or just completely avoid it altogether. And that, I think, again, maybe sounds frustrating and almost like a deterrent to a lot of people, but to me that's exciting, because you don't know unless you try. And there's so many options out there, and there's so many companies out there building these types of solutions, that it's impossible to just read their about me page or their product page and get a full grasp of what they're trying to sell. And you just have to do it. You have to use it. In the end of the day, you just have to use it. So treating these hackathons as a cheat to like just getting your hands on as many things as possible and walking away with this, nice, deep, long history and experience with all these products, I think is a huge win. Even if you don't like them all, you don't have to like any of them, but it's the experience, I think, that's valuable.
yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say, I always, I mean, I guess technically, programming is a language, and I don't know, I probably made this comparison before, but it's like learning a new language. If you go to Mexico for a month, you're probably going to learn how to speak Spanish pretty well, as opposed to just doing Duolingo every day. So like you can do it that way. It's just going to take a little bit longer to get to where you want.
Yeah.
But if you just fully immerse yourself in it, like you're going to pick it up pretty quickly. So yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, on the other side of that, there's a million tools, and you could spend as much time as you want reviewing all of the tools to try to make the perfect decision. And then there will undoubtedly be something that you've missed, and
Yep.
then realize like, oh wait, well this tool's not good at that thing. And again, I mean, I guess it kind of goes back to our framework and library conversation as well. Is
Yeah.
just that there is no silver bullet. Like there's going to be one platform is good for one thing, but it's not good for one particular thing or whatever. There will be strengths and weaknesses. So there's always going to be too many options. So just got to pick one. And then, like you said, you learn a lot from just picking the one and sticking with it for a little while. Then decide like, yeah, maybe it's time to change it up. And then again, that's also an opportunity. That's like now you've been doing it for a while, so now you know what to look for and you know what to improve. So it's like a good chance
Yeah.
to also rebuild as well.
Yeah. You know what you like and you know what you don't like. And it's that learning experience. It's that just general knowledge of the tool. And then that way, I don't know, just if any point down the road you want to build the same tool, like maybe you've decided, hey, like I used this tool, I didn't like it, so be it. Later, another hackathon, maybe like 3 hackathons down the line, you're like, you know, let's just build our own version of that. Well, you gotta, you kind of have to know the space, and you kind of have to understand what the competition looks like, and you kind of have to have a good idea of like what even the tool will do and how it can flow and what UI elements are on it, right? So even if you want to build a competitor, like a Spotify competitor, right? Like, hey, I want to build a Spotify competitor. If you've never used Spotify, I think you're going to struggle a
Might
lot.
be a little,
Like,
yeah, a little
yeah,
tough.
you kind of have to use it, understand it. Where is Spotify's shortcomings? Where do they fall through? Where do they excel? What's good, what's bad? Because the more you use it, the more you can probably get a better competitor out there to compete with it. Otherwise, you're just going in blind and you're completely basing it off luck, which has happened, but that is a very low success rate versus like actual knowledge and research. I mean, that's why companies make billions of dollars on just doing product research and marketing and sales all around, gathering knowledge about competition and selling it to other companies. Like that's a whole industry in itself. So
Yeah, for sure. Um, and I was going to bring up, all right, so referencing Bubble as well. And this is one that like I've actually been meaning to come back to Bubble a little bit because like when I first tried it out, I was kind of not super sold on it because it's just like it's really tough because I guess kind of going back to like, well, I've developed before, so like I know how to write the code that I would want it to do, and sometimes it's just a little bit of taking that time to get used to how they've got things set up and just learning where it's like I know what I want to do. I just have to figure out how they want me to do it as far as like the interface and that kind of thing. So, but it's like, again, once you've got a feel for like how it should work and where things are at, it becomes super fast, because then it saves you a ton of time, because there's a bunch of code that you don't have to now write. You can just go connect it to something else. So yeah, so especially with like integrations like that, where it's like, oh, like we want our app to be able to take payments. So like, oh, you can just connect it with Stripe, and you just already have your Stripe account. Makes it a lot easier. Just drag in the Stripe connection, fill in some details, and it's good to go. Same with Zapier. Like, oh, we could just create some automations in Zapier, and we've got things connected. Saves you a ton of time rather than having to write all that code yourself. And I mean, and you can use GPT. Like GPT does help you build a little bit, but GPT is also very trial and error. You can give it some ideas about what code you want, and it's usually pretty good, but it's never 100%. So you're always going to have to kind of go back and forth with that. So, but anyway, yeah, Bubble though, I think is one that I do want to come back to, especially for that. Like I keep coming back to like ideas that it's like, oh, I want to like build something quickly to prototype. So I guess like a informal hackathon. Bubble would be one of the good places to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have no experience with Bubble, and that's a perfect example of a product that I will probably focus on for my next hackathon, because you hear and read, especially on Bubble's page, of course, because they're biased, all these success stories and all these examples of these incredible mainstream like products. Basically, like, yes, maybe Facebook wasn't built by Bubble, but someone built a social media with it, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like they've been able to copy or at least replicate these huge architectures and these big companies using things like Bubble to get out the door quickly, to deliver value, and to start generating revenue. And that's like the number one thing. Again, a lot of these people click on these hackathons for is the money, it's the revenue, it's the chance of winning something. So that Bubble obviously being a company wants to make money and also have you make money. That's the whole point. So yeah, that's one I would definitely want to try too. It's on my list, and I need to prioritize it because it's getting better. It's been around for a long time, and
That's what
it's
surprised me. It's like
yeah, very
5 or 6
old,
years old.
like
Yeah, maybe older.
old, right? Internet old. Internet age is like kind of like
True.
dog, yeah, like dog years,
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, that's a very interesting one for sure.
Yeah, and I was gonna also touch on a little bit, because we were talking about tools, and I mean, I've been working a lot in Webflow
Hmm.
lately, but I mean, I had picked Webflow just because I don't know, it was one that I'd run across quite a bit in when I was first starting to try to figure out how I wanted to like build out websites and stuff rather than just manually building them. But then naturally, like right away, I was like Webflow, but then there's also another one called Framer, and they're both basically trying to accomplish the same thing. So Framer, and I guess while we're at it, let's go to Figma, not Figure, Figma. So this is also, I guess, kind of goes back to the protopie that was showing earlier. So Figma's great for design, right? So I mean, you really could kind of prototype out things in Figma pretty quickly, right? And I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I know Figma a little bit, but not super well. But I'm assuming there's ways to kind of like publish, or is it mostly just like design?
I know you can emulate kind of like actions, right? Like
Okay.
you can take all your designs and surround them with like action wrappers. So like if you like so when you present the design, it almost feels like an actual working product. Like it actually replicates flows between, if you click on this button, then teleport the person to this design. So it looks like you clicked on a button and it took you to a page, like an actual working route. But it's really just jumping from design to design to design. I don't think it has any publishing capabilities, because that means it would have to be able to like store state and
Yeah.
save states. And I could be wrong. I have no like definite answer to that question, but I haven't seen it. At least they don't make it something that like free users can use, I guess, because I only use the free version of Figma. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I guess they are showing that you can. It looks like you actually you can get pretty in depth as far as
yeah.
functionality for like a prototype, where you can at least hook up clicks so that certain things happen, screens change, and that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, just to kind of cover that, because I'm sure this is at the heart of a lot of hackathons as well, as far as like trying to get the design down. Figma's a great place to like start prototyping out what it's going to look like. Um,
Oh yeah. I mean, and again, all these products have no affiliation to anything. Us personally, we're not sponsored by any of these people, but like just a quick laundry list of things that I always use. It's a great for people out there who like again have hard issues with decision paralysis. Going off my personal experience, my personal biases, Figma, great tool. We use it for every hackathon all the time.
Nice.
Lucid Chart, another great tool. We use
Mm.
it for every hackathon, especially when it comes to like whiteboarding and that infinite canvas of creating architecture designs and stuff like that. Um, as far as like sharing and passing around notes, we just use Discord. Honestly, like if we have to, we just like send a message to a Discord channel or a Discord private group, and that becomes our kind of like universal place to tag things. And then what else? I mean,
What
we
else do
don't
you
have
need?
like yeah, because I was gonna say we don't have a hosting platform that we use because that's usually what we're hackathoning with. Like we're hackathoning for AWS or for Oracle
Okay.
Cloud or for Microsoft Azure. So like we don't have a dedicated hosting platform because sometimes we can't use a dedicated hosting platform. Like we have to use the one the hackathon needs. So,
Got it.
I think the rest is kind of just up to whatever you're trying to build and up to whatever the sponsor of that hackathon wants you to use, right? Because there are rules. Like if you're doing an AWS hackathon, they're not going to take or give you any points if you show that your code is using Azure, right? They're going to be like, okay, disqualified. Thanks for wasting your time. Um, so yeah, I think the rest of it is up to you as well as up to the hackathon itself. But Figma, Lucidchart, Discord, those are a must for every single one that we do. So
Yeah, no, that seems like a pretty solid stack. And then I guess yeah, I was kind of going in the route of Framer and Webflow. But again, these are actually when you get really more into building out the website. And then the only
yeah,
reason I brought up Figma is that Framer is kind of the web design website builder that's more Figma looking. So if you're used to Figma, then it should look fairly familiar, fairly similar, with like a more of a open canvas kind of styling. So I know this is like one of the more popular web design tools these days. There's definitely gaining traction. A little laggy there, but it might be a little bit more user friendly potentially if you're starting out without really knowing what you're doing. But it's a great way to also like get a website up, and it kind of bleeds into the no code again, where it's like
yeah,
you're able to build like these really beautiful websites and able to kind of hook them up with things quickly if you need to do some like basic integrations. So like I'm sure you can connect it to Stripe, you can connect it to what I don't know, whatever else you might need to at a high level, whether it's Zapier or something like that, or maybe potentially like a CRM like HubSpot or something like that. Um, but yeah, these tools are also getting pretty crazy, where it's like you can build something that looks super professional pretty quickly and actually have the functionality that like you were talking about, and I mean have something that's reasonably scalable as well. I mean, again, like it's probably going to be able to handle most of the stuff you're going to be doing initially, unless you hit something super viral that's going to have millions of users. Then you might be in trouble. It'd either be like really expensive, but otherwise, like it's probably going to be able to handle like at least technically whatever you throw at it, and be able to handle quite a few users. A couple hundred users, couple thousand users, if you happen to you know get that kind of traction right away. Get some luck with your hackathon. Um,
yeah, for sure, 100%.
so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was kind of going with the Webflow thing, and that was kind of back to like where again I was talking about having like the two different tools and just having to pick one. And it's like I know, surprisingly, I think Webflow has been around for like 10 years. Uh, I think 10 years now. Framer is the newer one. I think it's only been around for a couple of years, but kind of the same tool for the same thing. And when I was initially picking, it's just like like I went with Webflow because one benefit is that there's already kind of an ecosystem around it. So now like I was able to tap into another component library called Reloom, where they've actually built on top of Webflow, and now they just have a bunch of components that you can use to like slap together a website really quickly. They have their new AI tool, which you can just give it a prompt, and it'll help you try to build out like an initial wireframe for that website, so you can save some time there too. So
Yeah, it's super
uh,
cool.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really pretty crazy to watch that you give it this prompt and it kind of gives you this outline, or like I guess a sitemap essentially, and then you can change that sitemap into a full wireframe, and then it kind of gives you like a whole layout. So it's pretty crazy. So there we go. Here's actually an example of a there you go. And that kind of generates like what the website would look like, at least from a foundational standpoint. So pretty cool stuff. What
Yeah, I mean, and it's not even like it's not even something that you have to again like spend so much time on. Like as you can see, these tools the whole selling point is it's quick and dirty and easy, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like these wireframes are made to just be templates that you can drop in and drop out. Like, okay, this header looks like this, and you know what? I don't like it anymore, and put a new header in. Like that's the whole point. Is it's not supposed to be stuck in this constant feedback loop of should it be this color? Should it be this color? Should it be this? Maybe the text a little bigger. Try this font. Try this font. Try this font. Like the whole idea of all these products, which it's trying to sell to you, so that's why it's convenient to use them, is because it's fast, it's simple, it gets it out there, and then it makes it easy to edit and change and refactor later. And that's all in the spirit of hackathons because they get it. That's the whole point, right? Like you said, iterate, 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 but first and foremost, build it and build it, so that way it can be used and so it's out there in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the faster you can get it in front of people that would actually be using it, the better. Because again, it's hard to come up. You can come up with a lot of potential scenarios, potential issues, and ideas and problems on your own, but there's always going to be something else that as soon as you just even though the first time you give it to somebody else, they're going to think about something different and they're going to use it completely differently than you ever thought of. And
Yep.
it happens every time. Happens every
Yep.
time. So yeah, faster you can get through that pain, the better. But again, I guess it's maybe not so much as important with the hackathon as more so hackathons just the going 0 to 1, getting past that idea phase, which
Yeah.
which is
Not
fun. I mean,
everything
it's
has
always
to
fun.
not everything has to be a company. Not everything has to be your best idea. Like maybe you've always wanted to build an app that I don't know, delivers food to people like DoorDash, right? Like maybe that's something you're like, oh man, that company is doing it wrong. I could do this so much better. I just need to build an app. And I know exactly how to do it. I just want to build it. Like, okay, pin it. Like that's what you want to do. That's your end goal. But like use hackathons to learn about products that you may use to then get to that end goal. Like, make a hackathon on Reloom and make a hackathon on Bubble and like get a feel of these tools, building like crazy stupid stuff, just like little projects that don't mean anything because you're just doing it for experience, you're doing it for, a learning opportunity, you're getting your hands dirty, you're learning. And then later down the road, maybe a year after doing these little hackathons every so often, now you're ready to actually build that DoorDash competitor because you're way better equipped with the knowledge of what's out there and what tools you can use, what your stack's going to be, how you're going to use the stack. 'Cause you already have experience, so you can like gun ho right out and you can build it correctly. Because going back, to my earlier conversation, you build the first thing and you usually throw it away because as soon as you're done building it, you're like, I could build this so much better. So don't make that your perfect project because then you're just going to get frustrated and you're going to start hating that idea. You're going to be like, man, you know what? I quit. I can't do it. I can't build a DoorDash app. Like I just can't. I suck. So I'm done. Versus if you do that on little things, tiny little things that don't matter, then you're not as frustrated because you're like, yeah, I didn't really like the idea anyways. It was just for fun. It was just to learn. So who cares if I throw it away and if I delete the repo, right? So then that way, when it comes to the real thing, hopefully you don't delete that one and you build it right and it scales and so on and so forth.
Yeah, for sure. Gotcha. Yeah, when it's just a weekend's worth of effort, then it's not so bad to be like, I can start over, or we
Yeah.
can do it again, or whatever. Yeah, no, it's a very good point. So I don't know. Yeah, it's something that I don't know. I guess we already kind of talked about as far as like something I've been looking forward to doing as well, as far as doing some bubble and whipping up some other apps on the side. So I've been doing a little bit of side projects on the side, and you've kind of touched on that already as far as like AWS and that kind of thing. Just having a place to like host and have some things run automatically.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Side project wise, I was going to say what's I don't know what would be the distinction between a side project and a hackathon. Is it after if you continue a hackathon past a weekend, does it become a side project?
Yeah, I think so. I think if it's a continually iterated and expandable idea that maybe the seeds of it and the start of it is the hackathon, but then you're like, you know what? We actually have something here. Like we got the product out there. I'm liking it. It actually turned out better than I expected. Or it could be the exact opposite of that. Maybe it looked like crap and you're like, not good enough. And you either scenario, you just keep at it and it becomes something that you work on over time and slowly. And it doesn't have to be every day, it doesn't have to be every week, it could be every month. You just touch it, maybe add a couple lines or improve a design. Maybe you make dark mode and that's the only thing you do. Well, that's good enough, right? You're iterating on it, you're touching
It's
it,
something.
and
Yeah,
it's a side project.
yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Um, I forgot I was gonna bring up something I heard just the other day that I don't know, just like on the kind of the creative. I mean, and it's hard not to bring up the monetary side of it as well. But I was listening to a podcast, the My First Million podcast, and they're talking about this guy that he heard something about. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like essentially, there's a game that kids were playing at school. It's like Assassin or whatever, and and the kids would be like given. I think they're just giving each other target of somebody they're supposed to go after, and they would shoot them with water guns. So they have to like
Oh yeah,
sneak
I
up
know
and
this
shoot
game.
them. Yes. So
Yeah,
so the guy built an app for that to like help facilitate that, where you get all the people that are playing in the app, and then they can have their missions assigned, and they can update statuses and stuff on like who's done the job and that kind of thing. But apparently it just took off because he said it was, I don't know, I was doing some crazy numbers. Where it was like the first, I forget, he said like the first week it was not a lot of traffic. Then by like the third week it was making like $40,000, like, and then the next week it doubled, then the next week it doubled. So um yeah, it's just interesting, but just one of those like really creative things you wouldn't really think about. It's like it's an app for a game that's played in real life,
yeah,
like but just something creative and fun like that. And totally from a hackathon. I think he put it together in like a weekend, or maybe a week, and it turned into this huge thing. So
yeah.
um
I mean, Wordle is another great example. Like the guy who created Wordle was just like, my girlfriend liked game. I mean, don't take this as direct quote. This is from my memory of what he said. So, I
rough
could be wrong.
paraphrase. Okay, yeah.
But he's like, my girlfriend likes word games, and she was tired of doing the same old, crossword, type thing. So he's like, all right, well, there's a game called, it's the same game I remember as a kid. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like a bunch of beads, and you have to get the color order, just like Wordle, right? You have to get the word that's the same, but the board game was, you have behind like a closed wall a bunch of different colored beads, and you had to put the beads in order. So you'd put them in a random order just to guess, and the person would be like, "That one's right, that one's wrong, that one's right, but in the wrong spot." Again, just like Wordle, and then eventually you get the color code correct, and that was
Okay.
the game. Same exact concept that he remembers playing that game as a kid, the same one I remember. The name is escaping me, and he just applied it to words because his girlfriend wanted a word game, and Wordle became super popular. So, like, that was it. It was just
Yeah.
that. That was the reason.
Right. Yeah. Just creating a game. Or yeah, whatever. She created a game for for his girlfriend. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's crazy. I say and it also just it's just like timing. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of cycling as far as, or things go in waves and trends. So just waiting for another Flappy Bird to show up again.
yeah. That one's still so funny because the only reason why it failed was because they used the same pixel art, I guess you would say, or the same art as the Mario tubes, and so they got taken down. But I don't know. It just seems so funny because I don't understand the full like logistics or legal thing behind it. But like, couldn't you just change the art and then Flappy Bird would still exist? But I guess I don't know. It's gone, so I
I
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Right. I remember hearing that
Like, you
he
could
had.
just change the pipe art and I don't
Right,
whatever.
just use different assets. But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess, yeah, I guess I don't. I'm sure if it's, especially when I mean, I think I remember hearing some crazy stat that it was making like $50,000 a day or something insane for a little while. Obviously, that wasn't going to sustain, but it probably also scared him. But I was gonna say, I'm sure when you get into big numbers like that and Nintendo's involved, then they probably will justify it somehow. It's like, well, when you started it, you were using our assets, so we
Mm.
definitely own it, or whatever, own part of it or whatever. So, but yeah, no, craziness. So
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. It's like the whole intellectual property law, like, was it ever his to begin with because the asset was in the game? Like, what did he ever own it, right? Like, kind of a
right,
thing. Yeah, that's where I don't know.
yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
not a
That's
lawyer, never will
right.
be, never want to be, so,
A lot of lawyer rules there, lawyer
yeah.
speak. So yeah, um, but I mean, hey, that sounds like a good, for the most part, a good problem to have. If the problem of
Dude,
success is one of the better problems to have, I would imagine. So
I
yeah,
think I heard a quote from either Silicon Valley or some other comedy show. It's like, how they're like hyping this guy up like for his ideas. Like, then you'll hit 1,000 users. And the guy was like thinking about it. He's like, wow. It's like, then you'll hit this, then you'll hit this. And it's like, then people will start to sue you. And that's when you know you've really made it. And that, like that line, the person was like, oh, I don't want to get sued. They're like kind of like a shock of like, well, crap. Like, is that really my end goal, is to start getting sued because I've become so successful? And it's like, because that's the nature of the game, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
kind of happens a lot. Like usually when people get really successful, they get sued.
Yep.
Um,
Usually good
but
indicator
yeah,
you're onto something that
yeah,
you made somebody mad. So you've got the right idea some way. So yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess just to kind of bring it back to the spirit of the hackathon, though, I guess you had already kind of talked about it. That really, like the learning experience is probably the most important part. But I mean, there is that extra incentive that or maybe an added bonus that if you happen to
hmm
create something that also does very well, that's just icing on top. So
yeah. I've won money doing these hackathons. That I didn't turn away the money. I took it, of course. Like, it's fun, especially since you're with your group of friends. You're putting your heads down, and like everyone can do this differently, right? But I literally go from like 9 in the morning to 4 in the morning nonstop development, and we all do this. Like we all sign this like unwritten pact that no one is going to sleep, no one is leaving outside. Like we pack the fridge with drinks and food, and we make sure every need is prepared, so that way we are going hard the whole time, and then we get up early the next day and keep going, right? It's truly a very isolated weekend hackathon, and every hour counts. So yeah, 100%. Like you don't have to go that hard, but that's the whole idea, is just like to you know to put your heads down, and then after all that hard work to win a little money, that's, yeah, icing on the cake. Just like you said, it's kind of cool. It's like really rewarding and really fun, and it gets you like ready to go for the next one. But it can't always happen, so you can't always expect it.
yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I was gonna say, and I got to participate in the
hmm
most recent one. So again, appreciate the invite, but it was awesome. It was fun to be able to. I guess kind of like you said, it's just a different energy, when everybody's in the same room. And, everybody's also kind of aligned with the same goal. It's like,
Yeah.
nope, we're working on stuff the whole day. Take some breaks here and there, but otherwise, you know, hacking the whole day, which is pretty awesome. It's just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's like I said, it's a little bit harder to accomplish. I mean, it's one thing to sit in a Discord call or something all day, and I mean that's in the right direction. It can kind of mimic that same energy, but it's a whole different thing when it's like everybody's hanging out in the same room, and you can all have the same conversation, and yeah, it's a whole different experience. But yeah, it's super cool. So yeah, it's a good system. You guys got a good system going on. So
Yeah, and honestly, it was great. It's now getting to a point. We have so many people. You are always welcome, of course. You already know this, but just to say it on air, I guess, you're always welcome and always will be. And that's the thing, is like it's an open invitation to a lot of people, and not everyone shows up. And that's what's great, is like sometimes we get a different batch of people at the hackathon, so it's almost like we get new ideas and different approaches, because it's a different band of people. And then other times, it's like the core. Like sometimes there's like a core group that always shows up and all that stuff. But now it's getting to a problem of space. Like now we need to find a bigger space, because our
yeah,
group is actually growing to a point where we have such a limited physical space. We need to start maybe like looking at Airbnbs or something to like host these, because it's getting cramped, and it'll be super cool, especially if you split it with like 7 people. It's not too bad, and you just all fit into a living room, and bring sleeping bag. Like, 'cause that's the thing, we're sleeping on couches, we're sleeping on air mattresses, we have bean bags. Like they, the whole feel, the whole environment is pizza, energy drinks, sleeping bags, like hackathon, right? It's to
that's
bring us
right.
back to like those kind of sleepover slash like bunk bed slash college dorm room experiences of just throwing people at a problem and coming up with a really fun and cool solution, and fun memories and weekend and everything. So
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is definitely also in the true hackathon spirit. You gotta.
mhm.
Well, I was gonna say maybe there's an opportunity here to hackathon the hackathon. Maybe some sort of hackathon app or something like that. So, got an idea for the next one.
Uh, oh yeah, that's another thing, is our group. There's no such thing as a bad idea. It's just we sometimes like to ask. a few like, but how are you going to do that? Or why do you want to do that? And sometimes people kind of get back and go, yeah, never mind. I don't want to do it anymore. Because it's like, it's not like it's a bad idea. It's just sometimes you're either going way too big or way too small. And, he's got to find that middle ground of what
For
idea
sure.
you want to build. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to validate a little bit before you go running off in one direction and make sure it's
Yeah.
not a total waste of time. All right, well I got one last thought for you. It's funny. I've talked to a couple people now that I was doing a hackathon or whatever a few weeks ago, and everybody was thinking like, oh, well, what are you trying to hack? Like, are you going to get in trouble? And so,
Uh,
so it's kind of funny that it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see how if you're not in the tech world, um, it's maybe just borrowed terminology, that it's more so just hacking something together, but not like hacking as in trying to get access to something you shouldn't have access to, or trying to break anything or that kind of thing. So just want to throw that out there. But any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. I've had those conversations as well, actually. It's usually, yeah, with the non-tech crowd, right? It's funny because I don't I guess I don't talk to them enough to like get get enough of those conversations because I do kind of surround myself with a lot of tech people. But anyone who I don't find to be as tech literate, yeah, they think the same thing, and it's funny. And I sometimes explain it because sometimes I don't, only because I almost think the explanation is worse than just letting them think that I'm hacking away trying to get access to the Pentagon. I kind of like that, that they're
Hmm.
thinking that's what I'm doing. Because explaining like, no, 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 like we're just gonna build a really bad kind of hack together pickleball app, and they're gonna be like, why? Why would you waste your time doing that? Like that
Right.
sounds pointless and lame versus not having to go through that entire like speech just to let them think again that getting access to the government, like, whatever.
Right. Like, yeah, just doing nerd stuff. Don't worry
Yeah, it's like,
about
you're
it.
right. Yeah, I'm just hacking. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, that was a pretty that actually went pretty quickly. So
Yeah,
uh
time flies. Yeah.
we hacked this pod together. Any final thoughts for this one?
Final thoughts. Side projects are a good thing. It's kind of like sports where you want to play two sports to improve in the one sport, right? So there's always off-season sports and there's always off-season things that you're doing to always improve in what you consider to be your main value or your main sport, right? I see side
Okay.
projects and hackathons as the same concept. If that helps piece these ideas together for you, if that makes sense in your head, that's how I see it. Um, and to always encourage people to learn new things, grow, get a better, be a better programmer, try products, be curious, right? Always be curious and never stop learning.
Yeah, for sure. No, I would definitely second that. I guess that's something, I don't know, I've been on a kick with that lately. That just like the value of doing the thing, like not so much, what do you get out of it? Like this is waste of my time, being most efficient, like that kind of thing. But just the experience of doing the thing, learning how to do the thing, and, like kind of like you said, just the whole spirit of just like hacking something together so you can just learn how it works and get the experience of what can go wrong and what to do for next time is just it's just huge. Like that's the most valuable thing. So um, yeah, no, would wholeheartedly agree. And I guess I don't know, somewhat related. I guess is there's a I forget. I think it was a Gary V quote or something like that that you could have essentially. You know, he was more so talking about side projects, and like he was like basically you have your main dish. So like you work on whatever your main thing is, and most people probably be like your job, but then you could have your side dish, and they're like, well, what if you want to have like multiple side projects? And he's like, yeah, obviously you could have a couple, um, and you could work on your have a couple different side dishes, and eventually like one of them may become the main dish. So if depending on which one you spend the most time on and that kind of thing. So essentially your hackathon, which leads to a side project, which may lead to a full project.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to have, like you said, like, and I like that multiple sports analogies, like that. Doesn't hurt to have a couple things going on, so you can be practicing a few different things, and then at some point one of them might combine all of it, and it just kind of turns into a home run. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like it.
100%. Awesome stuff. Hope people find a lot of value in this and start adding to more. I'll have more competition in my dev post hackathons, and I don't hate it. Some of them are a little sparse. Like not a lot of people are competing. So let's get more people in there. Let's make it better.
That's
Push
right.
each other, right? Push each other to higher levels. So
Yeah,
start joining
exactly.
those, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'll see you in the runnings, whoever's out there and wanting to join. So
Right on. There we go. The next dev post.
mhm.
Everybody signing up. Well, sounds good. Well, in that case, though, we will be done with this one. So that's episode 5 down, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sweet.
Thanks, man.
See ya.